Definitely. Now, I want to see blackouts, so we can't see our health. That would be quite hard mode, as we do get on our way here. It's dangerous to go alone. See ya!
Oh my, and hammer in the very first chest of the game.
That is...
in a way that kind of makes it irrelevant what our item is coming up here, as the players already have one of the better weapons in the game.
Definitely, of course, the hammer will do the level 3 sword damage. So one thing that we do know already is that the hammer won't be at the uncle, so it will be interesting to see what our runners were intended to use here, as it is the bow. Now, that is interesting because the bow is the fastest weapon to clear the escape sequence with. So as we see from Roach, using the bow instead of the hammer, opting for the faster route here, as we find the rad boomerang in the uncle chest.
Yes, and just before TidusZecht fell into the hole, we got a brief map check. I saw 3 crystals. I did not see... I saw one of them was 5-6. I didn't check its location. So it's pretty stacked light world as we get started here.
Definitely. Our runners will probably be happy to know that there will be 3 pendant dungeons in the Dark World, which of course could come back to haunt them if they do require required items. But with the goal for the seed being Ganon, we only need to collect all of the crystals. So, of course, our runners will be hoping not to dive into any pendant dungeons here.
Yeah, and of course we joked about dark rooms at the beginning here, but with the bow right off the bat. Oh, and now hook shot. This is one of the more stacked escapes that I have seen ever.
This is definitely one of the more lucrative escape sequences I have seen in the entirety of Randomizer that I've been here anyway. Of course, that does mean that a lot of the world is open to both of our runners, which does make way for a lot of route divergence, which is always exciting.
Yeah, and both of our runners, interestingly, but maybe not surprisingly, sacrificing a fair amount of time to farm up more or less every enemy for bombs. When you have a weapon like the hammer, which requires no ammo, of course, or the bow, which has relatively common ammo, that can be a good choice, but it also does slow down your escape a little.
Definitely. Now, of course, our runners would like to get at least 1 bomb in order to access the last 3 chests in the escape sequence, which would otherwise require either the lamp or the glove here.
The hits just keep coming.
Wow, this seed is it's not being very quiet as of now, with us finding the mushroom.
Yeah, and TidusZecht electing not to make use of the bow throughout the entirety of escape. Even there, getting a very nice pot plus hammer shot on that ball and chain guard to kill him.
Definitely the toughest enemy in the escape sequence, the ball and chain guard, sort of like a midway mini boss of sorts. Now, with Tidus opting to use the hammer only, we do see the time discrepancy here between using the bow and using the hammer only. As we do see Tidus getting a bomb drop here.
Yes, and Roach still with no bomb drop. Had the hook shot out. I was thinking maybe he would try to check the stun prize from these guards here, but it looks like he's just going to use that as a quicker way of insta-killing the rats, bats, and snakes here in the second half of Escape.
Definitely, of course, that stun price could come into play here, as if it is, in fact, the 8 bomb drop, or even just the 1 bomb drop, that would benefit Roach very much here. as he does get a bomb dog, luckily. So there will be no early advantages to missing the back of escape here.
Yes, and if the rest of escape turns out like it has up to this point, then that'll be very worthwhile.
Definitely, as we get a red rupee from the escape chest here. Of course, money in the randomizer plays quite a big role, gating a couple items as well as one of the Dark World dungeons. So our runners will be looking to get a total of about 1,000 rupees to pay off everything. Of course, at this point, that is none of our runners' concern, as we will get to see the 3 chests in the back of the escape.
Oh, and Roach, as my stream took a little skip here, looks like I missed Roach got a 8 bomb drop somewhere in there, so he is going to be stocked up for all of the bombing that he's going to need to do for the early game. TidusZecht, meanwhile, with the 3 bombs that he gets in those chests, will be close, be able to finish off all of Kakariko without problems, but will still potentially need to buy some there from the bomb shop in Kakariko to be able to continue on.
That is indeed true, as we get the single green rupee from the Sanctuary chest as Roach is unleashed upon the world of Hyrule here. I am expecting both of our runners to take the quote-unquote standard route of the North Loop down through Kakariko. And maybe because we did find the bow at Uncle, that our runners will opt to go to Eastern Palace as well, because that is completable, as well as it being one of the 5-6 crystals.
Yeah, Roach checking the tree pull and finding blue rupees, the crab throw, I suppose, and finding hearts, I believe, and seeing looked like a blue potion up there on Lumberjack Ledge.
That is correct. Now, that does open up a very interesting question here, because if that is the only bottle that is accessible to our runners, and if Sickit holds an item such as the Moon Pearl, then we might have an Aghanim required seed, as we find the cane already at not even 10 minutes in. We have a lot of the major items. Wow, what a seed this has been so far.
Yeah, interestingly, for all the items that we found, still not a full complement of the items that we would need for Dark World access. Just the hammer really counting towards that.
That is true. Of course, we have still the entirety of Kakariko here, as Roach makes excellent use of the hook shot. Hook it onto the tree, speeding along his movements, as we still do not have the boots. So definitely a good choice here from Roach.
Oh, and our lower tier tree pull, I think checked from possibly both runners, finding just hearts there. So nothing particularly exciting from trees in this seed that we've seen so far.
Yes, we have seen all 3 of the tree pulls as we get a blindside check here. So far, nothing really of value here. Of course, rupees are always welcome, as we do have the 100 required to purchase the item from the bottle vendor. Luckily, our runners will not have to come back for that one.
We have our Cane of Burna in the bottom of the well.
Indeed,
perhaps a less popular cane, but can be useful for some of these early game things, especially as our runners are still on 3 hearts, and they find a sword as well.
Yes, so far this seed has indeed not been very friendly in terms of heart drops. We did see a couple of pieces of heart here, but not enough to create a new heart container, unfortunately, as Roach does his map check here.
We do get our confirmation.
As we get undoubtedly the best location for the flute, will immediately be able to activate that, which makes the overall traversal immensely more easy. Wow, this is indeed madness.
Yes, and as I was saying before, I just about spit-taked from that perfect flute location. We do get our confirmation that Eastern is a 5/6 crystal. So we will definitely see our runners polish that off very quickly, I would expect. Possibly even choosing to skip the south side loop to handle that first.
Definitely, of course, it is always a good idea to go ahead and clear crystal dungeons that you have the ability to do so. Of course, by logic, we would still require the lamp, but at this stage, I doubt that either of these runners will have any trouble with dark rooms here, as we get another arrow upgrade in the back of the tavern. Oh, an interesting development here, as we are going to see Roach perform a minor glitch that has been discovered fairly recently. He is going to get rid of all of his magic here, and due to a weird property with the Cane of Samaria and the mushroom, if the Cane of Samaria is used without magic, thereafter immediately switch to the mushroom, it will activate the powder animation, as you just saw there. So if there is something here, this will be considered a sequence break. As we find the bug net.
And now this is interesting, because in order to do that glitch, you do need to be out of magic. So not only did Roach have to spend a little time shooting off Samaria blocks, but also has no magic now. So they will not be able to activate Samaria and Berna. Maybe not a pressing concern due to the surfeit of weapons that the seed has given us, but a difference between the two runners.
Definitely, of course, being able to perform the fake battle glitch on your first go through Kakariko is already quite a rare occurrence, due to it requiring a very oddly specific set of items.
Yeah, and both TidusZecht and Roach activating the flute after choosing that they wanted to get that bottle. TidusZecht, unfortunately, not able to avoid the bird, and just goes back to Kakariko to get in there, but a little bit of a time loss. But both of them, in the end, deciding that they do want that bottle containing a green potion. And we may see them using the flute, or just by walking, go back up to Sick Kid immediately and finish off Kakariko.
Definitely, of course, that will make the bottle on the lower deck cave unrequired in order to get the Sick Kid's item here.
Oh, and TidusZecht, thankfully dodging the bird this time. If you activate it too early, then you no longer have the ability to grab items. So he moved over that green bottle, green potion, found that he could not pick it up, and quickly thinking, ducked out of the way.
Yes, getting fluted away from a location you didn't want to twice in a row is not as optimal, as we do only receive some exploding bombs from the Sick Kid here.
Oh, and as TidusZecht goes up to Dark Mountain, going to take care of the old man, we see Roach flute to 2, the witch's hut, and turn in that mushroom immediately. Maybe a smart choice, since he's already done fake powder. He has no further need for it.
That is true, as we do find another 300 rupees, which is, of course, very welcomed by our runners. Now, it is interesting that we are seeing this divergence, as Roach will be checking the Desert Ledge and, by extent, Agina's Cave. Both of these runners opting to forgo both Eastern as well as the Southern Shore.
Yeah, I'm wondering if perhaps Eastern, the typical way that you'll do that when going through the dark rooms involves a couple of damage boosts. I'm wondering if maybe they want to find an additional heart container before they hop in there, just to give themselves a little bit of safety, in case they don't get that right the first time.
Yes, of course, this seed so far has been very exciting as we find the flippers inside of the Spectacle Rock here. But and neither of our runners has filled another heart slot here, so the seed has been pretty unhealthy so far.
Yeah, and with flippers, as we see Roach fluting down, looking like he's going to take care of the South Shore. Having flippers when you do that South Shore, I would say is a significant advantage. Lets you go from Ice Rock Cave or from Mini Moldorm Cave if you choose to stop early, right on up through that Lake Hylia loop, getting the Hobo, getting the Waterfall Cave. So this is a route divergence that could have significant repercussions.
Definitely, and as we see here, Roach also already has enough to get the item from Zora here. So, of course, Tidus is only 10 away from that number, but we will be getting the Zora check just that little bit sooner from Roach.
Yeah, and Tidus getting blocked by a dead rock there, all the more scary when you just have 3 hearts and a bunch of lettuce raining down on you, but he does manage to get out without too much trouble.
Mini Moldorm Cave here, turning up so far with just a beetle. Of course, having another bottle at this stage in the game is still a very welcome safety. Definitely now, because Roach already picked up that bug net from the magic bat as we find silvers in the Paradox Cave.
That will also significantly speed up quite a few things for Tidus, most relevantly the boss and the mimics in Eastern Palace here, which both of our runners, assuming that they are fine with dark rooms, will be considering fully clearing.
Meanwhile, though, Moon Pearl in the Paradox Cave. That is part 2 to the 3-part Dark World puzzle here, only needing the Power Glove in order to have full access.
Yes, and this trip up the Dark Mountain, this route divergence, has been an incredible payoff for TidusZecht, finding Moon Pearl, Silver Arrows, very important items. And it looks like now Roach is fluted to Death Mountain, and we'll be finding those as well. One major difference, without those flippers, TidusZecht may not need to go back to South Shore more than once, whereas Roach probably will.
That is very true. Roach did opt to forgo the fake flipper glitch, as we do find out that the cape is on the floating island, as Tidus takes a dive into the Tower of Hera, of course, one of our required dungeons. Will be able to complete it if he finds the big key in the next Jester. Otherwise, we are firelocked out of Tower of Hera.
No, yeah, amazingly, for all the items that we have, we've somehow avoided getting a fire source.
And unfortunately, it does look like we are going to need that fire, for the big key is in its vanilla spot today in the Tower of Hera, as Roach is making his way up the mountain. We'll be getting his flipper shortly here.
Oh, and Tidus with those 3 hearts, taking a death there. I think he was hoping to make it back to Spiral Cave before that happened. Not a terrible loss, as that's just one item that he had left to check, but unfortunate for him, because he will have to take another trip up Death Mountain.
That is true. Ooh, Roach almost walking into the pit there before grabbing the flippers here. Does opt to save and quit. Will forgo the silver arrows and the moon pearl. And an interesting choice indeed, as... Oh, never mind. I am mistaken. we will see a Dark Will here, or a Death Mountain here from Roach's side.
Yes, and now we see TidusZecht coming on down to the south shore. He will, after taking care of the dam and mini Moldorm Cave, almost certainly, and potentially Ice Rod Cave, almost certainly be hopping into the water to see what Hobo, Waterfall Cave, and Zora have.
Meanwhile, Roach, acquiring his silver arrows, will be happy to find those for his first trip towards the Eastern Palace. Of course, not a huge deal, but it does speed up the Armors fight quite significantly. Ooh, Tidus unfortunately takes a crab hug here. Crabs, of course, being one of the more deadly enemies in the Night World, dealing a total of 2 hearts of damage with Green Mail.
Yes, thankfully with the flute, relatively easy to get back to where you need to be.
Yes, the flute giving both of our runners a very solid choice in their traversal options here. So we do see Tidus heading his way into Moldorm Cave. So Roach is going to be making his way up the mountain again. Will be interesting to see what lies hidden in the Spiral Cave.
If Roach makes it there, as he takes 2 shots from the mini Moldorms they are coming through, the hook shot's not quite landing.
That is true. Has to be careful. Pretty much anything has the ability to do him in it, as he does opt to forgo the Tower of Hera check. Oh, maybe not. I'm just going to stop predicting our runners' routing here. So we do see Tidus going up to the Hobo under the bridge here. I'm quite confident about that one, and we'll most likely see a Zora check as well.
Yes, and passing by a 5-arrow upgrade on the island. Nothing that our runners will be coming back for. Oh my, and Roach finding the book in Spiral Cave. That is a miss from TidusZecht, unfortunately dying there, that could be essential. And TidusZecht getting the boots from Hobo. So many items.
Both of these runners finding items that could possibly progress the seed. Now, at the moment, the book is our only way into the Desert Palace, but as it stands, we might need those boots to complete Desert Palace, so the routing in this seed is indeed very interesting with all the items that we have gathered. As we do see Roach skipping out on those boots. Of course, Roach has no idea where the boots are, of course, as both our runners are kept completely separate from each other. So it looks like Roach will be the first one here to check out Zora, as well as the Zora ledge.
Yeah, and meanwhile, TidusZecht taking the swim route up into Ice Cave, possibly just to avoid those crabs along the way.
Yeah, Ice Rod Cave can be pretty brutal to get through, as it is guarded by about 3 or 4 crabs.
Oh, and TidusZecht electing not to go up to Waterfall Cave, Zora and Zora Ledge. Instead, looks like they are making the play directly into Eastern. So they will not be getting that heart from Waterfall Cave. They will not be getting ripped off by King Zora here, as we see a 20 rupee piece given for that 500. Oh, and it looks like they will be taking a death there. This, for everything that the seed has given them, these 3-heart runs can be tough.
Yes, especially this early within the seed. Of course, we are almost half an hour in and still at 3 to 4 hearts there. Of course, Roach will be getting his boots here shortly as Tidus is using the boots as we speak to check some exclusive locations here. So only finding another big 20. Ooh, Roach has to be careful here. Tidus forgetting that he does not have the glove there.
Yeah, unfortunately, that whirlpool that he is warping back to now, the only reasonable way into that top side with King Zora and Zora Ledge.
Yes, as we do see our runners crossing paths here, we'll be checking out each other's footsteps. As it does look like Roach will be checking out the palace of the Eastern Palace here.
Tidus, meanwhile, pulling off another sick bird dodge there, deciding to go up and get the item from King Zora.
Yes, although not required, of course. It is one of those locations that you'd rather have done sooner than later. As we find our first shield in the back of Sahasrah's place here.
Yes, and our 4th heart piece, giving Roach now 5 total hearts worth of health. Enough now that they can potentially not be quite so worried about missing a damage boost in Eastern Palace if they do choose to take that route.
Definitely, any heart is welcomed by either of our runners. Of course, there are still quite a lot of pieces of heart left to find, as well as some full heart containers. So it will be interesting to see where those are located. Of course, none are technically required by logic, I believe. But don't quote me on that.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think is maybe Spike Cave might take that into account, but I think it does not. I think that's only half magic and an invincibility item.
Yes,
or
Spike
a
Cave,
magic refill.
Yes, indeed. A bottle, half magic, as well as safety items such as burner or cape are required in order to get through Spike Cave. Because as we speak, Roach finding one of the full heart containers as Tidus is entering the Eastern Palace as well.
Yes, and with 2 items out of the way here, he could get what would be, I think for him, the ideal Eastern Palace, getting all 3 items and the big key, and ending up right in front of that big key door, not having to do the back half, which would require 2 dark rooms. And it does still remain a possibility as he does get the big key in this chest. So if this big chest contains an item, I would expect to see Roach go directly through that big key door and fight the boss. And it contains an important item indeed. The fire rod gives our players a fire source and opens up a little bit more.
Definitely, of course, the bulk of the usage of the fire rod will come in the form of the Skullwoods dungeon. Of course, at the moment, we still don't even have access to the Dark World here, as we do see the Eastern Palace Dark Room from Roach. He did get the key off of the Igor. We'll be looking to pick up the pots here. Has to be still pretty careful as there are a lot of enemies.
Oh, and the mimic has been activated, the second one, as I did see it flash there from a sword slash. That can be the most dangerous thing to happen in this room, as it will start to chase you down, and it is pretty, takes a lot of damage.
Ooh, Roach
Down
has
to
to
just
be
half a heart here.
It's going to opt to refill.
Oh, that's a very heads-up play. Refilling his magic and using the Cane of Berna to make absolutely sure that he does not die. And yes, effectively killing off that mimic there and making it through. So with just half a heart here, he's going to have to be very careful with these mimics, with this cannonball room, which is entirely random, but making it through the hardest part, that second dark room in Eastern Palette. And meanwhile, of course, TidusZecht reminding us, with the fire rod, you can, of course, just light the torch in there and kind of trivialize that room. So, unfortunately, Roach and me, to be fair, not remembering that and taking much more time to get through there.
That is very true. Of course, when you are this early in the seed, you don't really expect to already have the fire rod at this point. So we do see a textbook almost nice fight here. And Roach at 31 minutes will be receiving his first crystal. Now, it does look like Roach is opting to go back up the mountain. Of course, has yet to check any of the chests in the Tower of Hera. We'll be able to full clear the dungeon, as we already know from Tidus' side that the big key is in its vanilla spot. Meanwhile, Tidus probably opting for the same approach here, getting that fire source, being able to complete another crystal dungeon.
Yes, and this is going to be another chance for Tidus to come back up and receive that book in Spiral Cave. Presumably, he will route that in after his clear of Hera, as he does have a fire source now to take care of that.
That is true. Now, with that book, we also might see what is on the Ether Tablet. Of course, at the moment, having only the Fighter Sword will not be able to receive the item, but at least our runners will know if they have to come back up the mountain another time. Meanwhile, it does look like Tidus is using the full potential of the boots here in the Spiral Cave. Will be getting his book shortly as Roach makes his way to the Tower of Hera basement. Unfortunately, misses the item dash here, but uses a bomb to expertly set up the coffee break.
Oh, and TidusZecht, after getting the book, electing to flute away, go straight down and complete Desert Palace rather than continue on towards Hera.
Very true indeed. Of course, having the boots will make sure that that the entire dungeon is completable. Of course, we don't know whether or not the boots are required, as unfortunately Tidus throws the ball in the wrong direction now. Roach will be taking Death Warp due to still missing the mirror.
Yeah, that is the one thing that is nice about having 6 hearts, is it doesn't take long to Death Warp regardless of where you are. as TidusZecht makes use of the book to unlock Desert Palace. We see those nice NMD strats from Roach, turning precisely to knock the beetles off the ledge in the shortest amount of time possible.
Definitely, which is one of the NMG strats, as I did talk a little. Meanwhile, we find the Master Sword in the compass chest here, which is of course a very welcome addition here to our runner's arsenal.
We are frighteningly close to go mode, considering that we have not yet left the light world.
That is also true, of course. The one of the last things that we will most definitely need is 2 glove upgrades. And on that subject, our runners can't even complete Desert Palace unless we have a vanilla glove.
Oh, that is absolutely true. And I wonder if TidusZecht factored that into his decision to flute down here immediately or not.
It is something to easily forget, as the glove is one of the more required items, of course, as Roach takes on Moldorm.
Oh, and TidusZecht getting potentially bailed out, as he does find that first glove inside Desert Palace itself.
Very exciting indeed. Meanwhile, Roach getting his second crystal here, as Tidus takes a death wall, I presume, to get back to the dungeon here. Looks like we will get a ether tablet check here.
Oh yes, and since Roach got the Master Sword, it will be more than a check. It will be a retrieval of another heart container.
Which, by all means, is nice, but definitely not required at this point. Big chest only contains a red rupee. It is on to the Landmola fight here for Tidus, as Roach is following closely behind. Will be getting his glove as well in a matter of minutes here. Both of our runners will have access to the Dark World before the 40-minute mark.
Yes, but interesting to note, TidusZecht, with that decision to flute down to Desert directly, if he just does choose to enter the Dark World right after beating Desert Palace, will be doing so without the Master Sword. And that can be a significant difference in terms of even just clearing out overworld enemies, but also being able to kill bosses more quickly.
That is very true also. Of course, the Fighter's Sword does only half the damage of the Master Sword, and within the vanilla game, you're never intended to reach the Dark World with the Fighter Sword. So the enemies are quite beefy if you don't have a sword upgrade. Meanwhile, Roach will be getting his glove upgrade, as Tidus is about to head into the Landmola's fight here. 3 wounds to take care of course, with the silver arrows. I doubt this will be any hassle at all.
And that is about as quickly as you can do it. 3 silver arrows into 3 Landmola's heads, nets TidusZecht the compass, and more importantly, his second crystal.
Yes, that is pretty much a textbook Landmola's fight, as I did only glance at the chat for about a second, and Landmola's was already down, so very good job on Tidus' part here. Roach will be closely behind, of course, also with the silvers in hand.
And yes, TidusZecht fluting to spot 3. Looks like they will be electing to enter the Dark World before completing Tower of Hera. Considering that actually completing Tower of Hera would require another climb up Death Mountain, I think that's a smart choice, given what they've done. Unfortunate, though, for them that they are not going to have that Master Sword as they come in here.
That is true. Although Tower of Hera is a small dungeon, there are still 2 unique items In that, of course, one of them being the Master Sword, which will eventually be required, as we do get a Dark Up map check here, as our 3 pendants will be Skullwood's Green, Thieves Town, and Turtle Rock, as well as the other 5-6 Crystal and Maya.
Yes, so we have Samaria, Hookshot, and Fire Rod, and Pendant Turtle Rock. That spells the potential for this seed to stop being quite so generous in the same way that it has up to this point.
Definitely, of course, Pendant Turtle Rock always feared for the laser bridge. Of course, our runners will be hoping not to have to visit Turtle Rock at all.
And of course, the 5-6 crystal being Mire means that our runners will need to acquire at least one of the 3 medallions in order to finish the game. As of yet, we have not seen a check as to which one that is, and it will be potentially a while before we see that check on Mire, as they are going to need gloves. The second tier gloves, the Titan's mitts, to access that.
Meanwhile, Tidus making his way through these Skullwoods here, not finding much of anything. Of course, with it being the green pendant does put a little bit more weight on the dungeon here, but does opt to get out before completing it.
Absolutely. And meanwhile, Roach finishing up his extremely unhyped cave, checking the pyramid item and seeing nothing of importance, will be continuing up here to looks like just catfish.
Yes, Tidus with that Dark World having dipped into Skullwoods, is opting to clear the Village of the Outcasts here, which holds another handful of items, as well as the Thieves Town dungeon. Of course, Thieves Town is a pendant for the seed, but I am almost expecting both our runners here to at least take a little peek at the first 4 chests. As we find the lamp in the brewery, so no more dark rooms.
And TidusZecht finds that second glove upgrade that he needs inside the treasure game.
Village of Outcasts, as well as Kakariko, holding a lot of items for us for this seed. Will be interesting to see what we will find here in the Thieves Town dungeon. Of course, we do have the hammers, so if our runners do decide to press on, they are at least able to full clear this dungeon.
Yes, and with the Master Sword up there in Tower of Hera, which TidusZecht will be eventually getting, of course, I believe that we are just... Yeah, I believe we are just a mirror and the medallion for Mire away from Gomo for TidusZecht, potentially.
That is most definitely true. Of course, the mirror is required in order to enter the Swan Palace, as well as the medallion, which is of course needed to open Misery Maya. Now, of course, there is still a lot of game left to check, as well as a couple of pendant dungeons. So it will be interesting to see what decisions our runners will make in terms of their routing here.
Absolutely. TidusZecht, interestingly, electing to go into the back of Pendant Thieves Town. Considerably slower than getting that front 4 chests. And with just six hearts still for TidusZecht, kind of a scary dungeon, as there are quite a few enemies here, particularly in this room, that deal 2 hearts of damage. But if important items turn out to be back here, then this might be a essential play.
Yes, essentially, when you are looking for only 2 more items, every single location does get a little bit more of anticipation, as we might find both of our required items here in Thievestown. Of course, one would be pure speculation, as neither of our runners has been to the Misery Mire area, in order to see what else we need.
And TidusZecht taking out one of the scariest rooms, in my opinion, in Greenmail Thievestown. The bombable ceiling containing these 3 grasshoppers that get in your way and deal 2 hearts of damage as you just try to bomb that floor.
Yes, included with our sporadic movement, a little bit unpredictable as well, as Roach does pick up a slam. Now Roach will be receiving his Titansman shortly here from the chess game. Most likely will be taking a dip into at least the front part of Thievestown.
Yeah, and TidusZecht taking his time down here, using those pot throws to take out some of these enemies, just making sure that he has as much health as possible going into this blind fight. With a sword, he should be able to execute the script without too much difficulty, but any little deviation can lead to taking a bunch of fireballs to the face. As Roach picks up the Ether Medallion from the digging game, we haven't seen Mire yet, but that could be important.
That is true. Of course, Ether being the vanilla requirement for the dungeon. Of course, we are playing the randomizer, so not only the items are shuffled around, but as well as the medallion requirements for both Turtle Rock and Mire. So, for all we know, we are still looking for the other 2 medallions.
And TidusZecht picking up the blue mail inside the big chest of Thievestown. And something has happened.
Yes, a very interesting visual quirk here. If you take blind into this room and you press select on the, I believe it's on the same or second frame that the text box appears, the color palette will go a little bit crazy here, as we do see Tidus finishing off blind here. I couldn't see what the prize was, but other than the visuals, nothing else is affected by this glitch.
Yeah, I believe that. I honestly don't know. I had never seen Disco Blind before, so I believe that was a rupee of some variety that he picked up there. Not 100% sure though.
According to chat, it was only a piece of heart, which, while more useful than a rupee, is equally not what our runners are looking for.
Wow, yeah, that's an exciting color palette swap. As Roach picks up the Tempered Sword in Super Bunny Cave.
Definitely a great find as well. Of course, speeding up the eventual Ganon fights quite considerably between Master Sword and Tempered Sword, as we do see Quake, the vanilla medallion required for Turtle Rock.
And our runners probably, I guess it depends on your level of optimism, but personally, I would be happy to see that I don't have the medallion required to enter Turtle Rock at this point, as it leaves open the possibility that I will never have to.
That is true. Of course, Roach finishing up Dark Death Mountain here with the Hookshot Cave. Again, not much of anything. This seed has been pretty front-loaded so far. And
TidusZecht finds Quake. They're in hammer pegs. The pendant T-Rock Dip Dream is still open.
Yes, that does put the entirety of Turtle Rock on the board here, with the exception of the Trinex, as we
Yes, and
have yet
moment
to
of
find the Ice
truth.
Rock.
Oh, as we see Quake on Misery Mire as well. So, both of our runners extremely close to go mode now. TidusZecht just missing a Master Sword and Mirror.
There it
Roach
is.
just missing the Quake. Oh, was that Mirror in Mire Shed?
No, that was the Ice Rod. Oh no.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
Oh.
Our runners would have wished that was the mirror.
Will we see Mirror Trinex? The mystery remains to be solved.
Now, not only that, that also makes the mirror a potential pedestal item.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. Because we've cleared Thieves Town, we have everything we need to clear Skull Woods, and with the discovery of that Ice Rod, Turtle Rock is available. And we have the book, but we have not yet seen a pedestal check.
This seed is definitely taking a turn for the worse here for our runners. Of course, I'm pretty sure chat is fairly hyped about the potential of a pedestal seed here, but we still have a lot of dungeons to clear and a lot of item locations to go before we can be certain. So we'll just have to see.
Yes, and as Roach dips into, enters Palace of Darkness, presumably with the intent to full clear and get that crystal, TidusZecht will be going up and checking Pyramid Item and possibly Catfish, which we know from Roach's check to not have contained too much of interest.
Roach opting to go through the front door. Having the bow does open up the opportunity to save a key by going through the bowlock side. Instead, opts to go the more vanilla route here.
Oh, and potentially pays for it, as they do not get a small key in that chest on the legend there. Getting one small key here, they do have the option to go back, but it looks like instead they will just be taking this teleporter, and possibly this was their plan, just to route in this, well, not basement, first floor, I suppose, bow-locked area in a more natural way.
Definitely, of course, the silver arrows being a blessing, taking down both of the moves in one hit only. As Roach is making his way upstairs, so we'll be getting these two chests. As we are seeing a Blacksmith World Tour here and the Kingston.
Yeah, TidusZecht making extensive use of those hookshot dashes to move as fast as possible through the overworld as they make these checks.
Meanwhile, Tidus is bringing home the Lost Frog here. Will be interesting to see what we are smithing today. And we're counterfeiting money today, as we find the red shield in the Vanilla Vicky chest in the Palace of Darkness. Still wondering where that mirror could possibly be.
Yes, and without mirror, Palace of Darkness, kind of unfortunate to route. You see here Roach having to go back up the stairs, push the statue, go around this way. It's much nicer when you have mirror and can just accomplish this in several sort of small trips.
Definitely one of the longer dungeons without the mirror, but with Tidus having the Misery Maya medallion here, the mirror might still be in Maya itself. A lot of M words in one sentence there.
Yes, and TidusZecht picking up his ice rod. And I'm not sure if we saw a T-Rock pendant check from both runners, but TidusZecht at the bare minimum knows that he has everything now to full clear Turtle Rock. Potentially that may be weighing on his mind.
Definitely. Seeing a pendant Turtle Rock and then getting all of the items is definitely a scary prospect. As Roach will be making his way onto the first basement of Paths of Darkness here. As yes, we did find the single arrow almost in its vanilla spot as well, which is always interesting to see in the randomizer. Meanwhile, the not-so-dark Dark Maze here for Roach. Fortunately, gets the big key. We'll be able to check the big chest after a visit here, as Tidus only gets a small key from the Maya bridge here. Ooh.
And Roach, I haven't been counting items religiously for Roach. It's possible that he knows that the items are gone and took a death warp there.
Yes, looking at the racing, that did look at least slightly intended, so Roach obviously keeping better track than we are doing, and we'll be heading down to take on the boss.
Yeah, and meanwhile, TidusZecht still with a respectable number of hearts now at 9, but only 3.5 current hearts of health, dealing with that spike room, and in one of the end game dungeons in the game Link to the Past, has to be careful in how they move around just to avoid taking accidental death here.
That is true. This game can be quite difficult at times. And to give a little heads up to chat here, it is nowhere within any documentation is it ever mentioned that it is called a fire shield. It is only referenced as a red shield. Little bit of trivia for you there.
It does have that weird little triangle on it that I always took to be a flame, though. I don't know.
And of course, it being red does not help.
Yes, Roach788 with the lamp will be spared one of the more annoying dark rooms in the game, this turtle room. Able to pretty quickly just flip those over, take them out with the tempered sword.
Yes, definitely one of the more quote-unquote easier rooms if you have the lamp. Of course, most runners will also opt to just light the torch if they have the fire rod, which of course will light up the entire room, making it even easier, as we are seeing Roach in the Helmosaur fight.
Oh, and he does manage to get that fireball despawn, breaking Helmosaur's mask right as the fireball sprites appear, causing them to be destroyed, because that's just too many things to draw at once for our little game here. And getting the silver arrow into King Helmosaur will receive the compass and a crystal.
Meanwhile, Tidus continuing onwards through the Misery Maya here. So far, not really finding anything of value. It does look like he is going to make his way to the Victories boss and finish up his second red crystal here, which does give us access to the Cursed Fairy. Now, by the looks of things, Roach is going to buy up a few potions and probably take a dive into Ice Palace.
Yeah, definitely having something to refill your magic going into Ice Palace when you don't have Bombos available is a nice safety to have, as if you're not very careful about managing it, you could end up with less than a full magic bar when you reach Cold Stare, which means with only the Fire Rod, you don't have the ability to break open his outer shell.
That is very true. 8 Fire Rod shots are required in order to break his shell. Of course, there is a little workaround. If you have sword beams, you can substitute half of your Fire Rod shots by using sword beams. So long as both the sword beams as well as the Fire Rod shot hit the ice at the same time. As we do see Tidus into the Vitreous fight here, will be spamming his silver arrows here. And I hope you didn't blink, no pun intended.
No, yeah, Vitreous with the silver arrows, very quick boss fight to complete, and TidusZecht showing it off in prime fashion. As Roach picks up the mirror shield from the first chest in Ice Palace. Of course, we already had Burna, but this is just another reminder that Laser Bridge, of course, in logic now.
Definitely another bad prospect here for our runners. Oop.
Oh, and Roach just a little bit to the right, playing catch with that bomb and taking a heart of damage there, which is kind of unfortunate as... Well, no, they will get a heart refill here, so they will have sword beams coming into this conveyor room, which I personally find very helpful for taking out this... I don't know what the name of this enemy is. This electrified balloon that holds the key.
They are called berries. These ones specifically blue berries. Now, we will see the Ice Palace bomb jump. Oh, unfortunately, walks off the edge. After getting the bomb jump, we'll get to see it a second time here. As Roach will be making his way through the dungeon here. Of course,
and,
having the... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Of course, having both the hook shot as well as the Kingdom Samaria, the bomb jump does become a little bit less of a priority, but it still allows for some interesting routing.
Absolutely. And TidusZecht, coming up to complete Hera, will finally be getting their Master Sword. And the choice to do this now, rather than jump into Ice Palace, makes me wonder whether they're considering potentially Turtle Rock. It seems like potentially a little premature when there are still crystal dungeons yet to complete, but if it turns out to be the right play, then we could see some go modes.
That is definitely true. We are still just a mirror away for either of our runners. No. Roach still needs to get the Quake Medallion. But other than that, the mirror will be the last item that we don't know about yet. And I mean, now we do. The mirror in Ice Palace. Unfortunately, Roach, having missed the Quake Medallion, is not in go mode. But
yeah, that Quake Medallion, if I'm remembering correctly, in Hammerpeg Cave. Is that right?
That is correct. But that does mean that we are in no mode. Wow, this has been a wild seed so far as we get a synchronized big key pickup here. as Roach is making his way down towards Coldset here. We'll be checking some more chests here, as of course we still need the Quake Medallion for Roach here.
Wow, yeah, and this is really interesting because with after Ice Palace completed, that'll be 3 3 crystal dungeons still available for Roach, any of which he could potentially complete, and so he may take a little while before going back and starting to make overroll checks.
That is very true, of course, depending on whether or not Roach favors completable dungeons or overworld locations, as Tidus does pick up his Master Sword here in the Tower of Hera.
Oh yes, and as Roach hasn't picked up his blue mail yet, we are going to be seeing Cold Stare with 12 hearts, so a fair number, but green mail, so a hug here could potentially be deadly. And he does take one, not quite managing to get that Cold Stare puffs into the corner, but takes the rest of it out in pretty short order with Tempered Sword swipes and the Fire Rod.
Definitely, having the Tempered Sword for the Cold Stare fight is, of course, a huge bonus as well. Fortunately, only taking one hug here as Tidus finishes up Moldrum here. We get an almost synchronized crystal grab here.
Yeah, and as we have both runners with 4 crystals here, chat asks, who is winning? And that is not necessarily an easy question to answer at this point. Roach missing the Quake Medallion, TidusZecht missing the Mirror. At this point, it really comes down to just when they find that Go Mode item first.
That is true. It really all comes down to whether or not Roach, the runner on the left side of your screen here, decides to do Overworld before Dungeons. Now, it does look like Tidus is going to at least activate the portal here. And at this point, I'm expecting at least a dip into Turtle Rock.
Oh, and meanwhile, Roach looks like he will be heading into Swamp Palace. And without that Quake Medallion, will very likely be full clearing it. Kind of unfortunate, as he is 1 item away from Go Mode and could have potentially made this dungeon considerably quicker. Swamp Palace, one of those dungeons that you really hate to full clear if you can avoid it.
That is true. Thankfully, Tidus opting to only open Turtle Rock for the moment. And I also don't disagree with Roach's decision here. The Swamp Palace does have 6 unique items. So if you're only looking for 1 item, it is quite a high chance of it being in here.
Yeah, and Tidus picking up his Tempered Sword, we hope will not go all the way to Trinex, but it's a very real possibility at this point. And with the Tempered Sword, at least we'll have a relatively easy time there. Taking care of Trinex with the hammer is typically preferable to using the Master Sword when you don't have half magic, and is a more difficult fight with the hammer.
That is true, of course. The hammer's hitbox is not as reliable as the sword's hitbox is, especially too when hammering up or down. It can be quite tricky to actually land some hits in. And it does unfortunately look like Tidus will be going into Turtle Rock here, unfortunately. Now, of course, we are still a couple of safety items behind, such as the half magic upgrade, as well as mail upgrade, and 1 more sword is out there in the world. Of course, not required, but if they do happen to find these here, that will be a bonus.
Yes, with a cape up on the floating island, I can't imagine, given the items that our runners currently have, I can't imagine we'll see them going back up for that. As Roach, it looks like electing to go straight to the back here, maybe planning on, since he is one item away from go mode, maybe hoping to see that Quake medallion in the back half, and then we'll be choosing to come back in and finish off the left side and big chests if he doesn't find it, which of course we know he will not.
Yes, of course, we have the benefit of having two perspectives here at once. But our runners only have their own game to make their judgment calls on. As we do see Roach, of course, opening a couple of extra chests here, hoping to get that medallion. Instead, gets another heart for his troubles. Roach will be making his way into the Argus fighter. With the Tempered Sword, a fairly easy one, of course, only taking one swing per Argai here. Roach opting to use Tempered Spins there. With the Tempered, only taking two spins to take down the Argus, as Roach picks up another crystal.
Yes, and Roach, unsurprisingly, heading back into Swamp Palace here, having not found the Quake medallion, does not want to have to refill the play with the water here in case they need to come back in and get that. So, taking the opportunity to jump in and check it now.
Yeah, Swamp is definitely a dungeon that you want to take care of in its entirety or leave by the wayside altogether, as the dam will magically be filled with water again. So if you move away from the dungeon, you will have to pull the lever again.
Oh, and TidusZecht, I did not see it. Well, of course, yeah, without Mirror, cannot check Mimic Cave here as they are going through Turtle Rock. Hopefully not. Well, once they have Mirror, of course, they will be in go mode, so they won't be coming back to check that. So probably we will not be seeing that this run.
That would be highly unlikely indeed, as Tidus is making his way down to at least the laser bridge. It will be interesting to see whether or not he chooses to kill Trinex as well, as for all Tidus knows, the mirror could be on the pedestal, as opposed to Roger's point of view, where he does know that the Quake medallion cannot be on the pedestal due to it being required for Pendant Turtle Rock. No, Tidus missing the mirror shield is going to opt to use the Cane of Burner here.
Yes, at least one of those invincibility items required in Logic as Roach picks up Bombos. That'll be nice for, well, Bombos never hurts. As I was saying, one of those invincibility items required for completing this laser bridge in Logic. Of course, as we see her from TidusZecht, it is possible to line yourself up and avoid those lasers entirely. If you fail, however, that's quite a bit of damage, and TidusZecht does take a death here as he's going through there.
Yes, fortunately though, did open the safety door, will respawn right on the laser bridge itself, which does save a considerable amount of time as opposed to respawning at the big chest. Meanwhile, Roach is opting to take care of some overworld as we do find the golden sword here. Now, with this, I am hoping that Roach will continue his overall exploration here as he still needs that Quake Medallion in the Hammerpeg Cave. Meanwhile, Tidus making his way towards Trinex, so will be opting to completely finish Turtle Rock. Of course, from Tidus's point of view, not a bad choice at all. But we as commentators, we know better.
Yeah, and Roach checking the cave south of the Grove there, and then choosing to flute away pretty close to the location that they needed to be, of course. Hammerpeg's cave containing that Quake Medallion that they look again and see, yeah, I do need that for Misery Mire.
Yes, Roach making a heads-up play here, not forgetting the checkerboard cave, which does require the mirror in order to reach. Unfortunately, only a big 20, not what he is looking for. Meanwhile, Tidus finishing off Trinex will be receiving his second pendant here. It'll be interesting to see if Tidus opts to clear Skull Woods as well.
And Roach going south out of that Kakariko Dark World Warp. Looks like they are continuing their commitment to overworld checks, and we could see the Fateful One here as they are heading south. Going to be picking up the Blacksmith here first, but very shortly after that, very likely to make that Hammerpeg check.
Yes, with the equipping of the hammer, I do believe that is the course of action as Tidus is making his gamble on the Spike Cave. Now, Roach is making excellent use here of the boots as well as the hammer. If you press the A button and the Y button at the same time, you will have the hammer active as well as dash speed. As Roach gets into go mode, a couple of frustration slashes there, realizing that he could have had that quite some time ago. Will opt to turn in the frog here.
Yes, probably just to get him off of his back so he doesn't complain when you try to enter dungeons. But once he's done with this, he is in go mode, and I can't imagine that he won't be just heading directly towards those two dungeons, Desert Palace and Misery Mire, that have yet to be completed.
Definitely. Now, Tidus, with book in hand, might opt to check the pedestal here, as I do believe that is what is happening. We'll be happy to find that it is, at least in essence, not required to finish the seed, but of course it's always exciting to know what is on the pedestal.
Oh, our good friend the Bloomerang.
The blue
they're on the
boomerang.
pedestal. Yeah, and Tidus, given his course of action up to this point, perhaps not especially happy to see that. Probably having gone to the trouble of completing Turtle Rock, might have been hoping for a ped seed at this point, as that would have, given the knowledge that he has, maybe put him a little bit more even. As it is now, Roach is definitely in the lead here, in go mode and looking to complete these two dungeons.
Yes, meanwhile, Roach will be finishing off the Desert Palace as Tidus opts to purchase the Big Bomb. We will be getting a look at the Cursed Fairy on the Pyramid of Power. Now, we know that nothing of importance is there at the moment. But of course, Randomizer being Randomizer, it's always exciting to see what is at certain item locations.
Yeah, we do have a few things like half magic and the powder that would be not really going to help you gain any ground in terms of the race, but are helpful safeties.
Very true. As Roach picks up his second to last crystal here, only Misery Mire left to do. Now, the interesting thing about the Misery Mire dungeon is that depending on where the big key is, it might not differ very much from a Go Mode Mire to a full clear Mire. Now, I don't recall where we found the big key when Tidus made his way in there, but I don't believe it is an early big key.
Yeah, I do not recall either. I don't believe it was the vanilla location, but there are still plenty of locations that take some time to check in there.
Yes, it wasn't vanilla, but I do think it was quite late, but we will see it here shortly as Roach is making his way into his last dungeon here. Meanwhile, Tidus is going to opt to complete some crystal dungeons here, starting with Palace of Darkness.
Yes, and unfortunately, they do have everything they need to clear ice, and that would be where they would find the mirror, unfortunately not making that choice. So, going to be spending some extra time in here doing a full clear, presumably.
Definitely. I do not disagree with this play, as the Palace of Darkness has 5 unique items as opposed to Ice Palace's 3 items. So statistically speaking, this is the better option.
Yeah, I think Tidus maybe making definitely making an intentional gamble there with Turtle Rock, and seeing that most likely will not pay off for them. Maybe feeling a little bit behind, choosing to clear out the crystal dungeons as fast as they possibly can and not worry too much about what's left in the overworld.
That is true, as we do see Roach making his way towards the vanilla big key location here. We'll be spending just a little bit more time in the cutscene, which little tidbit of information is the exact same length as the one in Palace of Darkness. The only difference is you cannot see the walls, therefore in your mind it appears to be longer.
That is very interesting. I did not know that, and it does actually feel considerably longer to me than the Palace of Darkness one, that's for sure. And of course, the world weirdly rumbles while all of them are happening. I suppose representing the dungeon rearranging itself, but kind of unusual there. Yeah, picking up just the map in the vanilla big key chest. So we'll have to continue on. I believe at this point, all that is left unchecked for Roach is the chest to the screen left of the big chest. So they will be picking up their big key there. And, of course, being in Go mode... No, excuse me, my mistake. I haven't checked this switch chest. Okay, and that one does contain the big key. So from here, they will be going, presumably taking the warp on the left-hand side here. Yep, taking the left-hand turn, taking the warp up to the big key door room, and unlocking that and heading forth to Vitreous.
That does look like that will be the course of action here. Of course, with these silver arrows, the fight will be quite a breeze, as we can see Tidus setting up for the House of Darkness bomb jump. or better known as the hammer jump. Unfortunately, though, does miss the correct alignment to get around the collision of the railing.
Yeah, and unfortunately, throwing a bomb over there to break open that wall ahead of time, and then having to contend with the mini Helmosaur does take another fall there as well.
Does have to be careful here. Down to 1.5 hearts, presumably setting up for a Death Warp later on, but it won't be the first time that a Death Warp setup is coming back to bite the runner.
No, definitely. That Palace of Darkness, Dark Maze, not particularly difficult to get through without taking damage, but perhaps kind of difficult to get through fast without taking damage, as the enemies in there do tend to spit fire in what can be sometimes unwieldy patterns. And Roach, meanwhile, entering Vitreous, finishing it off in, well, not quite finished off yet. We could still see a death, but no, of course, we have the 2 silver arrows into the big eye, taking care of it in short order.
Yes, indeed, a very job well done from Roach here, as we are going to play a little mini game here. So, with the acquisition of all 7 of these crystals, we do get access to the Ganon's Tower. Now, there is one item remaining that we still need to complete this seed, which is the big key in order to get upstairs. There are 22 locations in Ganon's Tower, and only one contains the big key. So I ask you today, where do you think the big key is going to be?
I'm going to say, considering how front-loaded this seed has been in terms of just progression items early on, I'm going to say Ganon's Tower will be equally front-loaded, and guess chest number 1.
That is very generous indeed. I'm going to go a bit higher, not too high though. I'm going to call chest number 4. More specifically, the bottom left chest in the 4 Stalfos room, which by standard routing would be chest number 4. Now, of course, our runners still have the choice to go for a little bit of an unorthodox route through the Ganon's Tower.
Yeah, we have seen over the course of the tournament quite a few different routing options, and of course, depending on whether you feel ahead or behind, what sort of routing you're practiced with, potentially even your familiarity with NMG, all of these different things can influence the routing choice that you take. Roach, with significant, I think, NMG experience under his belt, we may potentially see a full left from him. Difficult to say until he gets in, which he is doing just about now.
That is true. Now, I would also like to take this moment to remind everyone that if you have subscribed to any of the Speed Gaming Channel Network channels here on Twitch, or donated a minimum of 250 bits, your score will be recorded and you will have a chance to get on the famed leaderboards. As we do see that, unfortunately, the Gold Ganon's Tower is not to be today, as we only find 300 rupees and, I believe, some arrows. Torch only holding a 50 for us today.
Yes, and neither of our runners very likely to pick that up. So we may see Bob here if we get to the far end of Ganon's Tower.
Yes, Bob does live for us today. Unfortunately, my prediction not coming through either. And on another side note, the stun price is vanilla for us this time, green rupees. Only took us 1.5 hours to find out, I guess.
Yeah, quite interesting, considering how quick these runners got the hook shot, that I don't believe that had actually been checked until right now.
Meanwhile, Tidus finishing off the hammer stocking here. Still missing the mirror, unfortunately. Now, at this point, Tidus has pretty much only one choice, and that is to go into Ice Palace, which does contain the mirror here, as we do find the big key in... I actually wasn't keeping count. Okay.
I believe that would be chest number 9, if memory serves. We have the 2 chests on the right, the torch makes 3, the Stalfos room makes 7, the firebar room makes 8, and I believe that is chest number 9.
That is correct. I had totally not been paying attention, but thankfully my co-commentator here is keeping track of the numbers. As we
No, yeah, I had to count up just to make absolutely sure, because I was not keeping a running count either.
Meanwhile, we do see Tidus picking up some blue potions. We'll definitely be heading into the Ice Palace here. Getting into go mode in a couple of minutes. Oh.
Oh no, and of course having checked, I believe, just about all of the overworld over here, unless we are seeing a purple chest check. Okay, and it looks like maybe we're seeing a purple chest check. Not ideal, but definitely not wasting as much time as the other potential thing they could be doing from this location, a dip into Skull Woods to clear that out. Roach, meanwhile, making effective use of those silver arrows to speed through the gauntlet here.
Yes, definitely. Having the silver arrows is pretty nice for the gauntlet, as there are a lot of enemies to get through, and I believe all of them die to a single silver arrow, as Roach does reach the first refight here, the land molars. Fortunately, misses the silver arrow setup, as Tidus only finds a bomb upgrade from the lunchbox.
Yeah, and after missing that setup, making a heads-up choice, I think, electing to switch on over to Fire Rod. With the reduction in lag from that, and I believe, faster travel time with the Fire Rod projectile, definitely a easier choice, if not necessarily a quicker choice, for taking out that land molus.
Definitely, Roach does opt to heal up here.
Yeah, and with a blue potion in reserve, as we saw there, should not have any trouble with anything else that awaits them on this Ganon's tower.
Definitely, and with 3 keys in hand, we won't be needing to find any more keys. Although our runners might still opt to check a couple of chests, hoping for that half magic or the last mail upgrade, as we have yet to find the second upgrade. I don't believe we've seen that so far.
Yeah, and Roach, of course, still sitting here on green mail. Green mail Ganon is always a somewhat frightening prospect. With a blue potion, some of that is defrayed, of course, but those Ganon hugs do a lot of damage.
That is true. I believe Ganon has the highest base damage of the entire game at 8 hearts. As we do, fortunately, find the Sanctuary Heart, as well as a multiple of 4 pieces of artists. So those 2 equate to 2 extra hearts for Roach, which is always welcome coming into the Ganon fight.
Yep, and Roach, having checked 3 of the 4 chests on the way up to Moldorm 2, finding nothing in terms of useful items, which we know at this point basically consist of the second male upgrade and the half magic. Nothing else really findable here that would be helpful.
Yes, maybe a bottle filled with a blue potion, but unfortunately, the last chest of the game only contains a piece of heart. As Roach does make his way into the Aghanim 2 fire. Now this fight is a little bit trickier, but it does look like we got a nice triple there. Aghanim lining up just right.
A very good lineup from that first teleport of Aghanim, putting them all in a straight line. And then some not so great ones. When they're sort of in separate corners, that's when you have to sort of move and swing in order to deflect multiples into Aghanim. Roach does finish it off, though, in fairly short order.
That is correct, and thankfully Tidus will be getting the exact same RNG as the RNG for every seed is set in stone when it is generated. So none of the runners will lose or gain time depending on, for example, how many times Ganon decides to warp or how many blue balls Aghanim will shoot.
Yeah, and a question in chat about what a good time is. Of course, that's very dependent on the seed, but I would say Roach, looking at a potential sub 140 here, in very good position, and has really routed the seed quite well as they go into Ganon.
That is indeed very true. Of course, this seed has been very generous at the start, but slowing down considerably during the end. Now, fortunately, Roach is on, I believe, 15 hearts here, so at least the seed has apologized in a sense.
Yes, it's hard to remember thinking back on those times when we were dying to crabs on South Shore. Oh, and unfortunately, Roach with a blue potion in hand, dying to those fire bat spins. This is the danger of Green Male Ganon.
Very true. Now, with that death, this does mean that the RNG is pretty much random at this point. Now, of course, if Tidus also takes a death, they will still be on the same RNG, but I do believe that the RNG is reset every time you restart the fight.
Yes, so our 2 runners, depending on their death status, not guaranteed the exact same Ganon fight that finishes, although they are, of course, guaranteed the exact same first Ganon fight.
Roach smartly deciding to heal up his hearts there. Of course, a Green Male Ganon fight is nothing to sneeze at. Ganon does a lot of damage, especially when you only have the level 1 male.
Yes, and getting through stage 2, considering that he has the silver arrows, perhaps the most dangerous stage of the fight disposed with. Very quickly, watching Ganon teleport here and taking care of stage 3. And now it's just down to 4 silver arrows.
Meanwhile, Tidus does get into go mode at about 138 here. Will be dropping into the cold step fight. Thereafter, only has to do Swamp Palace, and then it's onto Ganon's Tower for him as well.
Yeah, Roach electing to get the torch glitch rather than try to set up some fancy doubles. Probably a smart decision on just normal magic without that half magic pickup. And putting the 3rd silver arrow into Ganon right now and getting the double to finish the boss off. And Roach is going to finish here with a time definitely sub 140. Congratulations, very well executed.
Yes, definitely. Get your GGs ready in chat, guys, as Roach finishes with a sub 140. Very, very well done indeed. And the seed apologizing Never mind. Your princess is in another castle. Either way, we're not here for a princess. We are here for the Triforce.
Yes, and TidusZecht finishing up Ice Palace will be go-moding Swamp Palace. As he does, I believe that we do have Roach here in voice chat, able to give us an interview, so we'll just pull him in here. Okay, and I believe he is in. So, Roach, congratulations on your win.
GG's.
What'd you think about that seed?
Thank you. A couple of minor routing errors, but I don't think I could play that seed pretty much any better than I did.
Yeah, no, definitely. Not having to dip any pendants. Getting the how'd you feel about the quick several items? I think you got 4 progression items in Escape and Kakariko altogether.
It was like bow, hammer, hookshot, cane. It was ridiculous. I was like, what is this? And then flute right at bottle vendor. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we both did a bit of a spit take there. Possibly the best location to get the flute in the entire game. Okay, and I believe he is in. So, Roach, congratulations on your win.
Quake medallion
GGs.
a little bit.
What'd you think about that seed?
Right when I got the TidusZecht in the Village of Outcast area, I was like, all right, I should. Like as soon as I fluted away, I'm like, I should have checked peg game. So that probably cost.
Yeah, no, definitely. Not having to dip any pendants. Getting the how'd you feel about the quick several items? I think you got 4 progression items in Escape and Kakariko altogether. Okay, and we did have some difficulty hearing most of that as audio has not yet switched over to Tidus's stream. There we go. I believe we just got it switched over there, so you may have to repeat some of that because my extremely loud voice was echoing in my ears and I couldn't hear the first thing.
I realized, yep. Alright, I had desktop audio loaded still, that's why. That's my fault.
Oh, okay, yep, no problem.
Sorry, everyone. So I don't have the stream audio up, I just have the desktop audio up, which is reverberating everything. But yeah, I mean, I was also annoyed at myself when I went to do the spin speed at Desert Palace to get to the back half, when I fell. But I already dug the items out of there, so I wasn't feeling too bad about it. And as soon as I got to Dark World, saw Swamp Palace was required, I'm like, alright, I can just mirror there later, not really time loss.
Yeah, and definitely that early seed required you to be pretty careful. You spent a lot of time on 3 hearts.
Yeah, that's why I did not. With the bow, I usually go in Eastern Palace pretty much almost immediately to check it out. But I would only feel comfortable doing those dark rooms like 5 or 6 hearts, at least. Which you saw what happened in my dark room in Eastern Palace. I was so close to dying.
Yes, thankfully, switching to the Cane of Burner to take care of the eye goals.
I was like, oh crap, I'm at a half a heart. Potion, cane. Just, where's the spot to lift up already?
No, yeah, when you unfortunately manage to aggro that second Igor, that dark room becomes a lot harder.
I mean, overall, it's like I said, I don't think I could have played that scene much better than what I did. And I executed, that was probably some of my better executions I've ever had as well, especially in some of the dungeons.
Yeah, definitely. So, with this, I believe this is a 1-0 match, so you're sitting at 2-0 now. How do you feel about that?
Good, and extremely worried about my 3rd round.
No, definitely. I've been hearing that from a lot of runners going into the 3rd round of Swiss, that the different skill levels are kind of starting to shake out, and some people are feeling, overmatched. Some people are feeling like they're where they need to be and are going to be facing some really tight matches now. It's going to be really exciting going into week 3 here.
Yeah, that's where people are really going to separate themselves. Though you have some people who are extremely good that are sitting at 0-2 as well, so some people there have to watch out. Because just saying, my first round opponent, yeah, I was lucky, you know, with the gamble to be able to win that round. But in the last 4 dailies, nightly dailies, or whatever you want to call it, he's beat me by like 10 minutes in each one of those.
No, yeah, absolutely. Some very strong players at all levels of the record. Every bracket really going into week 3 has some people who you are still definitely going to want to watch out for.
Oh, definitely. And so, but for the most people who you expect to be at 3-0 later will be. I'm just happy to be 2-0 right now. It's like I'm, you know, performing where I want to be. My goal is just at least make it to the bracket stage overall.
Yeah, absolutely. With that 5-2 record, going to be required to make it into the bracket stage. Not giving up any losses early on is definitely what you want to see in terms of having some safety when you go into those real tough matches near the end of the Swiss.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm sure it's also interesting to see how some people play differently when it's 1v1 versus like one of the dailies, because you're more inclined to take certain gambles in 1v1 situations sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. As you see, TidusZecht here, just coming into Ganon's tower, he actually made exactly one of those gambles, choosing to finish up Tower of Hera a little bit later than you did, but choosing to full clear Turtle Rock after seeing that he had everything available for it, presumably making the gamble that some sort of progression item was going to be in there. Unfortunately for him, coming up blank, but yeah, it's the amount of strategy that goes into these 1 versus 1 race choices makes them really interesting to watch.
As I say on the tracker, he cleared Thieves Town as well. I mean, he's having a really good time for full clearing Turtle Rock and Thieves Town also.
Yes, very true. Tidus was expecting, of course, that the mirror would be on the pedestal, which ended up being Tidus's Gomo item as opposed to your Quake medallion. So, in all honesty, would you prefer overworld items to dungeon items for the next race, or are you going to keep it the way it is?
I focus early in the beginning, first like 25-30 minutes. Usually I do overworld, and then I try and stick to crystal dungeons after that. But outside of crystal dungeons, I will always go into the light world dungeons, even if they're pendants, to dig out items, and Skullwoods as well, because it's such a quick check.
Definitely. And would you care to fancy a guess, since we did have a head check from TidusZecht, do you want to guess what item was in fact on there?
Let's say, shovel or something?
Yeah, unfortunately, shovel would have been kind of fun, because that still opened up the possibility of pedestal being required, but it was in fact our old friend the Bloomerang.
Good old Bloomerang. I actually am a good fan of the Bloomerang. You can stun those annoying kiddos.
No, yeah, definitely. Everybody's favorite Boomerang, right?
Instead of a Lagarang. No one likes Lagarang.
Exactly, as Tidus does pick up his big key, we'll be heading on into the gauntlet. Of course, having all of the items necessary to make it through quickly, both fire rod as well as silver arrows.
I was afraid at one point when I had that death in Ganon, where I was like, oh crap, please don't make me have this make me lose the race. I was so scared at that moment. I knew I should have blue potion earlier.
Yeah, having those deaths when you have the potion at the ready is always just terrifying, because you think all of that time that I could have saved that I didn't, but in the end turning out okay.
I still was able to get a sub 140 and then that done at least, which I'm more than happy with.
Yes, definitely a time that is nothing to be ashamed of course. Tidus also making great headway here through the gauntlet.
Yeah, at 1 hour and 50 minutes now, he's got a pretty good chance, I would say, at a sub 2, which is respectable for just about any seed, I would say. Got a quick question from chat regarding the end of the tournament. Just to clarify that, we are currently finishing up week 2 of the Swiss. We are going to have 7 weeks total of the Swiss stage of the tournament. At that point, everybody who has a record of 5-2 or above, together with the people who got buys from the Swiss stage, will be loaded up into a 128-person bracket. That is also going to take 7 weeks to run. And at some point in there, I believe we have an off week for something else going on. The exact details escape me. But so I think in total, our tournament will run for 15 weeks. Considering that we're at week 2 right now, we've got, I believe, 13 to go. So just a little bit over 3 months.
Yes, definitely a lot of rando still to go here. As Tidus does finish up the Land Motors refight.
I appreciate you guys for commentating, and whoever our tracker was, sorry, I'm not sure who's tracking, but my roommate does need my help right now, so I'm going to be heading off here. So thank you guys for commentary, and if you can give best regards to Tidus for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the interview, and congratulations on a great run and a win.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Yes, with that, a big thank you to indeed our tracker Dark Replica for making our jobs a lot easier.
Yeah, and chat reminding me that week off on the schedule is for SGDQ, as many people are going to be occupied with that.
Tidus almost at the Modern refight. That's just a couple more rooms to get through here.
Yeah, and with Blue Mail, I wonder, we'll be seeing here in just a second, will he check these chests coming up on the way to Moldor 2? Looks like he will just be skipping them. He's satisfied with the equipment that he has.
Ooh. Somehow does not get hit by that explosion. That was quite interesting.
Some very exciting bomb juggling strats.
As we do see Dr. Professor White, I believe he's called, as the bunny sprite here. Of course, we did find the Moonglow rather early, so we didn't actually get to see any of the bunny sprites.
Yeah, I had not actually had the chance to see the Mega Man bunny sprite. That is a good choice. Congratulations, or not necessarily congratulations, but thank you, of course, in addition to all the people working on this tournament, to all the people working on Randomizer in general. All of our lovely sprite developers have given us, I believe now in version 29, more than 100 sprites in total. All of the people working on the ROM hacking, the programming, considerable effort that has not gone unappreciated.
Definitely, without them, this tournament might not have ever happened. Meanwhile, Tidus in the Aghanim fight does have a little bit of trouble lining up the energy orbs here.
Yeah, and with just 3.5 hearts, I believe they have a blue potion in reserve as well. But as we saw from Roach's fight, even with the blue potion, it's a scary fight.
Definitely, of course, having the blue mill is a bit of a bit of a safety net, but if you're not careful, you can take a lot of damage in a very short amount of time. And let's not forget about the possibility of a Ganon fall as well. As Tidus is going to start his Ganon fight.
Yes, and with Buttersword, the 3 hearts are sort of mitigated by the fact that he should get a very easy clear here of stage 1 and stage 2.
Ooh.
Oh, unfortunately, going for the fast strat down here for stage 2, wedging himself in between the wall and Ganon. Unfortunately, that's exactly the place where the fire bats spawn. On the plus side, that does just spawn him right back here with some extra hearts. So a time loss of maybe 15-20 seconds at tops.
Definitely only a couple seconds has been lost by that, but having the gold sword is, of course... Ooh, unfortunately takes a double hit here from the little fire orbs. We'll have to try it again, unfortunately.
Yeah, and tilt here may be coming into play, as we did see him hit Ganon for that second stage. I think a fair few more than the 6 number of times that is actually required to move him on.
Yes, having the gold sword is a very nice thing to have, as it pretty much makes the entire fight trivial. Down to 1 heart again, has to be careful, is going to burn his blue potion.
Yes,
Definitely
and a fantastic use of the hook shot there to set up the invulnerability and avoid that death to give him the free space to use that potion. Oh, and a second blue potion in reserve. I guess I didn't realize that he bought the full 3. But with that, on to stage 3 here. Having a little trouble hitting Ganon before the fire bats spawn to get the despawn on those, but finishing off 3 of the 4 stages and getting the 4th hit in now. So all we need now is 4 silver arrows, and we can still have that sub 2 taken care of.
Yes, does opt to focus on the torch glitch, which, while not vitally important with silver arrows, is definitely another safety net due to the fact that we have not found half magic yet.
And that is our 4th arrow going into Ganon and finishing off the fight for him, shooting off 1 more arrow. Just to give us a fun little freeze frame, TidusZecht will be finishing with an approximate time of 1 hour, 58 minutes, and 15 seconds. So, managing to queue up that sub 2, GG to him. Congratulations.
GG, definitely.
And we will be seeing if we can get TidusZecht in here for a interview real quick. Yeah, and as we wait on that, just once more want to give our thanks to everybody who has been involved in this tournament, all of our organizers, our tracker, Dark Replica, for doing a great job here, and everybody else who has been involved in all of this. It is a tremendous logistical undertaking, and every day I wake up surprised that it has been managed to pull off as well as it has, and it really has been a great job up to this point.
Definitely. So far, the tournament has been pretty exciting, both to work on as a commentator as well as a regular viewer. Pretty much all of the races have come down pretty close to the wire as well. And unfortunately, I do believe that Tidus will not be joining us for an interview unless I missed a memo from him.
Yeah, okay. We have
Speak of the devil.
him joining
There we
now,
go.
so we will welcome TidusZecht to the stream. TidusZecht, congratulations on your sub 2, and how'd you feel about that seat?
Well, I don't know. The mirror bit me in the butt. I had the same problem with a seat I did yesterday, and it was right there in Turtle Rock, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna skip that again. So I went straight in there while I was up there after doing Hera, and it just bit me in the butt again.
Yeah, we saw you go in there, and at the time, we already knew by that point that the gamble wasn't going to pay off for you. But knowing what you knew, I don't think that's a bad gamble to make necessarily. When you're given all the items to enter Turtle Rock, and there's so many items in there, that can really put you ahead if you get the right seat for it. And in this case, you just didn't get the right seat for it.
Yeah, it just sucked.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting for a while there. Both of you go-mode with two different items. As you were looking for the mirror, Roach was looking for Quake. Because he left the overworld off for a little while longer.
Oh, dang. That's funny. I kind of wish I had bombos, actually, throughout Ice Palace. I was like running in there with just a potion and fire rod, and I didn't get enough magic, so I had to use one of my potions in there.
Yeah, both of you, I think, electing to fly back to Witch's Hut and pick up some potions before doing that. And Bombos, if I recall, turned out to be very near the end, because Roach did end up picking up Bombos somewhere after he had done Ice Palace, so he didn't get the benefit of it either. But there was not too much chance that you were going to pick up Bombos in time to do Ice Palace, if memory serves, especially considering Mirror in there was blocking off a significant portion of the seed.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I bet Bombos was actually behind the mirror use.
Yeah, he did full clear Swamp Palace, so thinking back, it may have been in the left side of Swamp.
Oh.
I would have to go back and double check to see for sure, but yeah, definitely in an out of the way location.
Yes, I do believe it was on the left side of Swamp here. Though fortunately, you got to go mode the Swamp Palace. Now, I also have a question for you about the early game. How about all of those required items at the start? Within 5 minutes, you had, I believe, like 4 or 5 required items already.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with Hammer in the first chest, because that just means I was able to kill everything going through escape, so I can get me a bomb without having to worry about magic or running out of arrows, or if it was a bomb seed, I would just be able to save all of them. But, you know, ended up with the bow, and I put off Eastern for a while, which really didn't turn out to be much of anything either.
Yeah, putting off Eastern, choice both of you made, and ultimately I think turning out to be the right one, considering how stacked Death Mountain and sort of the rest of the overworld that you cleared before the Light World dungeons did turn out to be.
Yeah, I'm just nipped about all the deaths I had right at the beginning. Like, the 3 hearts thing is going to be my major issue here, because 3 hearts just going through everything and trying to get past the crabs on the south shore, it just caused me to get murdered like 5 times in a row.
Absolutely. Roach even told us during his interview, he he was putting off Eastern specifically up until he had an extra heart container, thinking about the possibility of doing those dark rooms and having to do damage boosts, run into enemies, things like that. So, and he didn't say this specifically to us, but he also put off South Shore a little bit longer than you did, maybe specifically thinking of those crabs that are really scary when you're on 3 hearts.
9 deaths right here. Jeez. I had 9 deaths, and I guarantee you 5 of them was in the first 20 minutes. It hurts so much. At least the collection rate's pretty normal, 156.
Yes, it has definitely been quite a brutal seed for the first, I believe, 45 minutes until the howl count really started taking off. Now, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about this seed? Anything that piqued your interest about possible routing or how the seed wanted you to go?
I wouldn't be able to tell you much without going back through my video, because my route choices depended on what I got at certain points. And like when I went up to Hera, I was fully intending on going exactly like I did, checking Ether, going into Hera, finishing it, then going and checking Turtle Rock's medallion, and then I ended up going back and forth and everything. And Ice Palace being the last place I needed to go, causing me to find the mirror there. I was 100% sure the mirror was going to be there, so much so that I clicked it real quick, but then I was like, maybe I'll end up with the shovel or something, so I had to click it off before I got to it.
Yeah, definitely a wide open seed at parts, and that makes it kind of a toss up in ways. Which dungeon you end up going into, what gambles you decide to make, that sort of thing.
Definitely, but with that being said, I do believe that we will start wrapping it up here. So maybe any last thoughts from you, Astragon or Tidus, on this seed?
Yeah, nothing left from me, I think. Just one more congratulations, TidusZecht. Not a win, unfortunately, but still a very solid run, in my opinion. And you will be going down to 1-1, but as we were saying with Roach, still lots of different, lots of people at a very high level of skill at all levels of the Swiss bracket at this stage.
Yeah. This is actually pretty much my average, 156 sub 2, just barely. It's pretty much how I end up doing most of the seeds I've gone through. My best seed, I ended up with a 142 or something, so I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks very much for your interview, and we'll be hoping to see more from you later on in the tournament.
All right, thank you.
Well, welcome. And with that, we will also be signing out. One last quick shout outs to TidusZecht, Dark Replica, as well as the Speed Gaming Network, and of course my co-commentator Astragon. Thank you for joining me on this one.
Yes, thank you very much, Stan. And coming up here on Speed Gaming, it is 2:15 Eastern Time, so if the schedule will do me the favor of loading, yeah, okay, there we go. On Speed Gaming Prime, the Speed Gaming channel without a number, we have Space Cowboy 2011 versus Gus. So if you hung around till the end of this interview and you're out in the cold looking for where do I find more rando, the main Speed Gaming is where you want to go.
Definitely. Thereafter at 3 p.m. it's In the Name of DT versus GTA Tifferhard on Speed Gaming 4, Dragon's Cloud versus Canster on Speed Gaming 5, and thereafter Saber Tender versus Yagamo on ALTTP Randomizer at 4 p.m. So there is definitely more randomizer to go around, so you don't have to miss anything. But with that being said, I shall take my leave. Any last words to our viewers?
I think we're pretty much set. Thank you very much for sticking around, and we hope to see you again for a future race.
Well, welcome. It's been a pleasure, and until the next time.
Bye-bye.